Hello everyone and welcome to the lecture on Amazon OpenSearch service. So this lecture will contain all these topics. What is Amazon OpenSearch service? Domains and clusters, component overview, shards and replicas architecture, node types and cluster architecture, dedicated master node quorum, instance families, OpenSearch service versus OpenSearch serverless, OpenSearch compute unit specifications, OpenSearch serverless collection types, when to choose which option, and serverless limitations. So first topic, what is Amazon OpenSearch service? Amazon OpenSearch service is a fully managed service for deploying, operating, and scaling OpenSearch clusters in the AWS cloud. It provides sub-second search latency with up to 25 petabytes of storage and supports up to 1002 nodes per cluster. Operations. So the service manages the complexity of deploying and maintaining OpenSearch clusters, handling provisioning, patching, backups, and failure detection automatically. This service was originally called as Amazon Elasticsearch Service. It was renamed in September 2021. The rebranding was triggered by licensing changes from Elastic. OpenSearch is an Apache 2.0 licensed fork. It was forked from the last open source Elasticsearch version 7.10.2. Second topic, domains and clusters. A service domain is an AWS provisioned environment. It is equivalent to a cluster and contains settings, defined instance types, and provisioned storage. Compute nodes are the EC2 instances in your cluster. Each EC2 instance acts as one node in the cluster. Version support includes OpenSearch versions 1.0 through 3.1. It also supports legacy Elasticsearch 7.10 for backward compatibility. Third topic, component overview. So the diagram shows the hierarchy from domain to indexes to shards. The table on the right will explain each component. So first we have the domain. This is the AWS provision cluster with all configurations. It is the top level container for your OpenSearch deployment. Next is the index. This is a logical grouping of documents with defined mappings. Think of it like a database table. Then we have a shard. This is a partition of an index distributed across nodes. Sharding enables horizontal scaling of your data. Primary shard. This is the original data partition. The count is fixed at index creation and cannot be changed later. Next is the replica shard. This is a copy of the primary shard for redundancy. The replica count is modifiable after creation. Fourth topic is shards and replicas architecture. The diagram shows 5 data nodes with primary and replica shards distributed across them. Default configuration is 5 primary shards plus 1 replica, which equals to 10 total shards. The replication mapping shows how each primary shard is replicated to a different nodes for fault tolerance. So let's say we have 5 data nodes. We have the primary shard, shard 1. This will be replicated onto a different node. So this primary shard, for example, P1 on node 1 has a replica on node 3. So here, shard 1. And same, for example, shard 2 primary has a replica 2 on node 4. So this shard 2 primary and replica. Same way, shard 3 has a replica on node 1 here. So same primary shard 4 has, so it will try to distribute as much as possible. So in this case, this one replica shard 1, for example P5 primary shard here has a replica on node 3. So this one here, and this is from here. Data distribution uses primary shards to store and index data. Replica shards provide redundancy and also boost read performance by serving search requests. The default strategy is 5 primary shards with 1 replica. This gives you a total of 10 shards per index. Fifth topic is node types and cluster architecture. The diagram shows OpenSearch cluster architecture with 5 node types. We have the dedicated master nodes, data nodes, then we have something called as ultra warm nodes, cold storage, and coordinator nodes. So first one is the data nodes. Data nodes store data and process indexing and queries. You can have up to 1002 nodes with a total capacity of 25 petabytes. Dedicated master nodes handle cluster management, tracking, and routing. They do not hold data, and you should always use 3 for production environments. Ultra warm nodes provide S3 backed warm storage tier. They are for read only data and support up to 3 petabyte per domain. Cold storage is the lowest cost tier with unlimited capacity. You must migrate data to ultra warm before you can query it. Coordinator nodes route, request, and host OpenSearch dashboards. They are only available when dedicated master nodes are enabled. Sixth topic is dedicated master node quorum. So first I will explain what quorum means. Quorum basically means majority vote that is required to make a decision. Dedicated master nodes are critical for cluster stability. They manage the cluster state and prevent split brain scenarios. They help you make decisions like which node is the active master, where should new shards be placed, is a data node healthy or failed, should we rebalance shards, and any cluster state changes. The quorum formula is quorum equal to master nodes divided by 2 plus 1. So if it is 3, it will be 1.5, but it will count 1. So 1 plus 1, 2. So if you have 3 dedicated master nodes, the quorum will be 2. So this formula determines the minimum number of nodes needed to make cluster decisions. So as I talked about, with 3 master nodes, the quorum is 2. This allows continued operation if one node fails because you still have 2 nodes to maintain quorum. So what I talked about decision making. So basically quorum requires any kind of decision. So this formula will be quorum will be calculated by the cluster, and depending on the quorum number total, that many number of master node must agree to make any decision. So there are 2 critical rules to follow. Never use even numbers because 2 nodes cannot achieve quorum during partition. Never use a single master node because there is no fault tolerance. For multi-AZ deployment, dedicated masters are automatically distributed across 3 availability zones. This happens even if your domain uses only 2 AZs. For very large clusters, use 5 dedicated master nodes. This provides higher fault tolerance as the cluster can survive losing 2 nodes. So the diagram shows the master node quorum concept with 3 configurations. So we have 3 master nodes with a quorum of 2, 5 master nodes with a quorum of 3, and configurations to avoid like 1 or 2 master nodes. To summarize all the different configurations. So 1, quorum will always be 1. You cannot lose anything and network split will not happen, but there is no fault tolerance. 2, so as per the quorum formula, 2 must agree. So both must be always operational. You cannot lose anything. And if there is a network split, like let's say a cable is disconnected or something, then this will be in a deadlock state. They will not be able to manage the data nodes. This will cause a split brain risk because you need odd number to make any decision. So this will say something else, yes, and this will say no, and this will make the cluster unoperational. 3 masters, so quorum 2 you need to make any decision. You can still lose 1 and it will be operational. Even in the case of a network split, so in this case, let's say there is a cable and one cable is cut and this one is unavailable. So data nodes will reach out to this and they will be able to make the decision. 4 masters, the quorum will be 3. You can lose 1, but If there is a network split, then there's a deadlock because you cannot make any decision, and this will waste one node. You are not getting any benefit. It is as good as 3, and you are wasting money here. 5, this is for large clusters. So quorum is 3. You can lose 3, lose 2 in this scenario. And 3 is operational. You can cluster is up and running perfectly fine. If split happen, also it's safe in this scenario if 3 are reachable by the data nodes. This is for large clusters. And 6 is, as I talked about, it's same as 5, but you waste money for extra master node. 7th topic is instance families. The diagram shows instance family selection based on workload type. You have memory heavy, balanced, search heavy, high IOPS, and dev and test. So R series includes R5, R6G, R7G, R8G. These are memory optimized instances with EBS support using GP2 or GP3. They are best for log analytics, large datasets, and aggregations. R series is the recommended default. Then M series include M5, M6G, M7G, M8G. These are general purpose instances with EBS support using GP2 or GP3. They are best for balanced workloads. Then C series include C5, C6G, C7G, and C8G. These are compute optimized instances with EBS support using GP2 or GP3. They are best for search heavy workloads. Then I series includes I3, I4i, I4G, I8G. These are storage optimized instances with no EBS support. They use instance store only with local NVMe. So this is a type of memory, non-volatile memory express. They are best for high IOPS, fast indexing, and low latency requirements. Then OR1 and OR2 are OpenSearch optimized instances. They support GP3 storage only and are best for remote store architecture with S3 backed hot storage. T3 is bustable instance type with EBS support. It is for dev test only with a maximum of 10 instances. T3 does not support ultra warm storage. Next topic is OpenSearch service versus serverless. OpenSearch serverless eliminates cluster management. It has a decoupled architecture and separates indexing from search operations. So right now, whatever we have talked about was the OpenSearch managed service where you see the machines and the nodes and cluster. Serverless is new option where you don't see anything. It's totally run by AWS. And serverless uses something called as collections model, and collection model has no domains with nodes. Instead, it uses logical groupings of indexes with automatic scaling. So this is a comparison table. So diagram compares managed service with domains versus serverless with collections. And the table shows feature comparisons. So first is the architecture. Managed service uses a traditional cluster with nodes. Serverless uses decoupled indexing and search. Capacity unit. Managed service uses instance types and counts. Serverless uses OpenSearch compute units called as OCUs. Scaling. Managed service requires manual configuration. Serverless scales automatically. Then minimum cost. Managed service starts at approximately $30 per month with T3 small. So depending on what instance type you use, you have to pay accordingly. Serverless cost approximately $174 for dev/test and approximately $350 per month for production. This is as of this recording, so this number may change. Encryption. In managed service, encryption is optional. In serverless, encryption is required and mandatory. Version control. Managed service requires manual upgrades. Serverless is auto upgraded to version 217.x. So this may change in future as newer versions are released. So reserved pricing. So this is available for managed service with 35 to 52% savings. This is not available for serverless. Ultra warm and cold storage supported in managed service. This is not applicable for serverless. Request signing. Managed service uses service name ES and serverless uses service name AOSS. Storage. Managed service uses EBS attached to nodes. Serverless uses Amazon S3 as primary storage. Next is the OpenSearch compute unit specification. This is for the serverless because it will use a different compute unit. So diagram shows 5 components of an OpenSearch compute unit: memory, compute, storage, network, and ephemeral storage. So each one OCU, like OpenSearch compute unit, provides 6 GB of RAM. Each OCU provides corresponding virtual CPU for compute power. Each OCU provides GP3 storage for persistent data. Each OCU includes data transfer to S3 for storage operations. And each OCU provides 120 GB of hot ephemeral storage for temporary data and caching. Next is the collection types, which is the type of data model that serverless is using. So the table shows 3 collection types with their use cases: storage, and there is a k nearest neighbor algorithm type support, and the refresh interval. So first collection type for the serverless is called as search. This type is for application search and e-commerce use cases. It uses hot storage only, does not support k nearest neighbor, and has approximately 10 seconds refresh interval. So you will use this if the use case is something like this, like e-commerce and application search. And next one is the time series. This type is for log analytics and observability. It uses hot plus warm storage, does not support KNN, that is k nearest neighbor, and has approximately 10 seconds refresh interval. The last one is the vector search. This type is for machine learning, embeddings, and semantic search. It uses hot storage only, supports k nearest neighbor, and has approximately 60 seconds refresh interval. So if you have any ML requirements, you will go with the vector search type of collection type, and you can do all machine learning related tasks because there is a k nearest neighbor which will help you identify whether some object belongs to a cluster or not and how far it belongs. So it will help you basically do a grouping whether it belongs to certain group or not. 11th topic is when to choose which option, so serverless or the managed service. So the decision flow chart shows how to choose between managed service and serverless based on the data scale, storage tier, pricing model, workload type, and team skills. So first one, choose managed service for large datasets ranging from multi-terabyte to petabyte scale. So remember, if you have very high massive datasets, go with the managed service. If there is any specific plugin requirements that are not available in serverless, so in these two cases, and if there is a cost predictability with reserved instances that offer 35 to 52% savings. So if you have predictable workload, you know how much you are going to consume, you know you can go with the managed service. If you need advanced features like ultra warm and cold storage tiers for data lifecycle management, and if you need custom plugins and packages that need to be installed on the cluster because you can control the node directly through the managed service, and you need fine-tuned shard strategy requirements where you need granular control over data distribution. Next is to choose serverless for variable or intermittent workloads where traffic is unpredictable. So basically, sometimes you are using it, sometimes you're not using. So you can go with this option because you know it's variable. It's not always like consistent or constant. When you have zero operational overhead, when you do not want to manage the infrastructure, and datasets under 1 TB. So this is the clear-cut decision. 1 TB per index where you do not need massive scale. So it is less than this, you can straight away go with serverless, and if it's variable and unpredictable. And teams lack OpenSearch expertise who want a simpler experience because they don't have to think about any sharding or designing of schema and all. No cluster management desired when you want AWS to handle all infrastructure operations. And there's some limitations for serverless. So first one, no manual snapshots are supported in serverless. No cross-region search or replication is available. No cross-account collection access is supported. Limited plugin support compared to managed service. No ML machine learning plugin is available except the k nearest neighbor for vector collections. and refresh intervals are not configurable in serverless. And that's all. Thanks for watching.